This song, that was sung by both children and adults in the year 2012, depicts the penetrative nature of the financial engineering scandal, variously described as the Woyomization of the Ghanaian economy, the Alfred Woyome scandal, the Woyome Gate scandal, etc., etc. This scandal is also the longest in the history of Ghana, as it straddled two election cycles, election 2012 and election 2016. Just to take you back a bit, the Alfred Woyome scandal is actually the second major political scandal of the Fourth Republic. The first is what was known as the quality grain scandal. It occurred in the late 90s, but was actually prosecuted under the Kuffour administration. The scandal involved the use of over $20 million of state money paid to an American lady, Renee Cotton, for the purpose of producing the cereal rice from farms in Avehime in the Volta region of Ghana. The statement of offense was as follows: causing financial loss to the state, contrary to Section 179A3A of the Criminal Code Act 29 of 1960. The particulars of the offense were that Samuel Dapaah, Kwame Pepra, George Sipayanki, Atodazi, between December 1998 and December 2000, willfully caused financial loss of 3,826,250,547 cedis and 5 pesewas of state money. Eventually, Kwesi Ahoy, the youngest of the famous Ahoy brothers, survived on a submission of no case. Dr. Dapaah and the Chief of Staff, Nana Atodazi, were found not guilty. But sadly, George Sipayanki, later to be Minister of Health under Professor Mills, Mr. Ibrahim Adam, Minister of Agric as he then was, and Mr. Richard Kwame Pepra, Finance Minister, paid the prison price for their role in what was known as the quality grain scandal. Correspondingly, authorities in the United States also tried and convicted Mrs. Cotton for what was said to be offenses under the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. She also served a jail term. The quality grain trial was high profile. It was the first time in Ghana's history that leading officials had been taken through a regular court in pursuit of state money. The trial drew crowds from all walks of life, and sometimes immediate past President J.J. Rawlings, as he then was, even attended court in person. Conceptually, the trial appeared to present a clear manifestation of the mantra of the new president, John Agyekum Kuffour. Mr. Kuffour had proclaimed at his inaugural address that there will be zero tolerance for corruption.
We pledge to cut waste and corruption from public life. There will be, under this administration, zero tolerance of corruption. And I make a solemn pledge to you, my compatriots and fellow citizens.
So when the Alfred Woyome scandal broke, older Ghanaians were reminded of the quality grain scandal. What then was the Alfred Woyome scandal? The story begins with football, and with Ghana's desire to win the AFCON, the African Cup of Nations, for the 5th time in 2008. Ghana was taking inspiration from the 1978 tournament, which Ghana hosted and gloriously won. Mr. Kuffour, the president of the day, decided then to host the African Cup of Nations in 2008, so that hopefully Ghana will host and win. To do this, 4 stadia were to be constructed, 2 big ones, 40,000 seater capacity, and 2 small ones, 20,000 seater capacity. So enter the leading protagonist, Alfred Agbesi Woyome. He claimed that using his best endeavors, he could negotiate a deal with the Austrian government or his Austrian partners to secure 2 big stadia for the African Cup of Nations. According to Mr. Woyome's argument, the deal had been done, signed, sealed, and delivered when Mr. Kuffour's cabinet decided to cancel the contract and to terminate it at the 11th hour. The termination was communicated to Mr. Alfred Woyome by the Honorable Yao Safo Mafo, who at that time was the Minister for Education and Sports. Therefore, Alfred Woyome out. Other people built the stadia, and the tournament was a good tournament. Ghana did not win, but everyone praised Ghana's ability to host the tournament. So then, sleeping dogs were made to lie, at least for a while, until this happened.
I, John Evans Arthur Mills,
do in the name of the Almighty God swear.
In the name of the Almighty swear.
That I...
Upon his taking over as president, Professor J.E.A. Mills nominated the former Chief State Attorney, the former head of the Commonwealth Secretariat's Legal Department, the former graduate of the London School of Economics and Political Science, the Venerable Mrs. Betty Mould-Idrisu, to become his Attorney General. In fact, Betty became the first female Attorney General in the history of the Republic of Ghana. Soon after she took office, reports were rife that Mrs. Betty Mould-Idrisu had inherited significant judgment debts. It turned out that principal among these judgment debts was a certain 51 million United States dollars, potentially owed and also claimed by Alfred Agbesi Woyome over what he termed the cancellation of a supposed contract to build stadia for the African Cup of Nations. According to the story, the finance minister, as he then was, Dr. Kuffour, blatantly refused to pay the money to Alfred Agbesi Woyome upon instructions from the Attorney General. Subsequently, Mr. Woyome sought legal action to enforce the payment. This he got from the court, and rumors were rife that eventually Alfred Woyome will be paid. A letter from the stables of the lawyers of Dr. Kuffour gives a clear trajectory of the events, showing the circumstances that led to the Ministry of Finance eventually obliging to pay Mr. Woyome. The letter from Dr. Kuffour's lawyers is actually written to one Mr. Andrew Gamble. He is with Hogan Lovells International LLP, London, United Kingdom, and is dated the 20th of August 2013. It says, suspected involvement of Dr. Kuffour in a case against Mr. Alfred Agbesi Woyome, clarification. So the letter goes on to give a certain trajectory of events. Paragraph 1 in the trajectory is as follows. On the 29th day of March 2010, the then Deputy Attorney General, currently the Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Honorable Ebo Batin-Odro, in advising the government of the Republic of Ghana, wrote a letter to the president at the time, Professor J.E.A. Mills, justifying the claim made by Alfred Agbesi Woyome. Paragraph 2 says, the Finance Ministry wrote a letter dated 12th day of April 2010, signed by Dr. Kuffour, requesting the Attorney General's Department for advice on the implication of the ostensible agreement and for further production of documents to substantiate the claim made by Alfred Agbesi Woyome. The Attorney General at the time, in the person of Mrs. Betty Mould-Idrisu, also wrote a letter justifying the claim by Alfred Agbesi Woyome, advising the Minister of Finance to honor the claim. Paragraph 4. Dr. Kuffour, as the Finance Minister, was not convinced. He refused to pay the claim, following which Alfred Agbesi Woyome went to the High Court Commercial Division Accra against the state and duly obtained judgment. The government was ordered by the court to pay the judgment debt. Consequently, payment was made by the Ministry of Finance. And that's how the letter from Dr. Kuffour's lawyers ends. Later on, the scandal broke, and Ghanaians were shocked that Alfred Agbesi Woyome had been doled 51 million cedis of taxpayers' money for reasons that seemed unconvincing to many Ghanaians. At a presidential press conference in November 2011, Professor J.E.A. Mills was bombarded with questions about what had become the Woyome Gate scandal.
From TV3, Your Excellency, one matter that will not go away this year until maybe the public sees a finality, a closure to it, is the issue that broke out at the end of last year, the Woyome affair. Mr. President, I'm aware some aspects of the matter are in court and therefore I will not go in. But your critics are even criticizing the government regarding some of your appointees, the way and manner they handle the affair. Some are even pointing to you, to your own integrity, questioning your integrity that, to quote, you supervise fraud. Mr. President, what is your reaction to that? Especially when this issue we are aware it's an election year, and this issue is going to dog the government to the time of the elections. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
I report for Metro TV. Mr. President, permit me to return to the Alfred Woyome matter, and I would like some education from you. It is said that your Attorney General, your principal legal advisor, has a writ in court seeking to set aside a judgment that Mr. Woyome benefited from. And you have also directed Iyoko to have a look at the matter. Is there not a conflict of the two actions, as the Attorney General is your principal legal advisor? And do you share the view of the Attorney General that this judgment has to be set aside? Thank you.
Well, I do not blame the people of Ghana for being concerned about this case. Indeed, all of us are yearning for the time when all the facts will be made available. That is the reason why I have referred the matter to Iyoko. When Iyoko submits a report, I can assure you that whatever action has to be taken will be taken. President does not have the power to ask his minister to make any payment except what is approved in the budget. And of course, when you have a judgment date, these are paid as a matter of course. So if you have a judgment from a competent court, the Minister of Finance does not have to seek the President's permission to pay. Indeed, if he decides not to pay, to decide to delay, the person, the complainant, can take the matter back to court. But my brothers and sisters, Dr. Mills has been Commissioner of Internal Revenue for 8.5 years. I know how the revenue agencies struggle to get the money for the good people of this country. I have been Vice President, and I've been President for 3 years. I know it is criminal, irresponsible, the height of naivety for a president to call his Minister of Finance and say, pay this man this. I don't know where it is done. Perhaps those who are accusing me of having paid, giving directives to the Minister of Finance to pay this amount, perhaps they know something which I don't know.
Tried as he did, Professor Mills could not convince Ghanaians about the Woyome matter. Meanwhile, Betty Mould-Idrisu had been moved to the Ministry of Education, and enter Martin Amidu, who had returned to the Ministry of Justice, where he has spent most of his working life, but now as the boss, as the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, the principal legal advisor to the government. And Martin Amidu seemed to have a knack for chasing after the Woyome money. He wanted Alfred Woyome to return the money. Tried as he did, Martin Amidu did not succeed. Later on, he was dismissed as Attorney General. The campaign for election 2012 began, and it came as no surprise when the Alfred Woyome factor became a big deal in the election campaign.
The era of Woyomization and corrupt economic governance will be over on December 7th, on Friday, inshallah. Emra eba be yeduma wo mangana. Kuffour emra eba be yeduma wo Ghana. Ubana only Kuffour because there mo eba tam o man sika. When yes want to be a weduma. Every on my sika, you found my whole child. You find your whole child. Yes, I did. And I find miraculous. And what you say, you a free president. You know, as I'm racing, Nambrano solo, a bayer to mass, a Kuffour-Addo Brasso. Wyoming no, and to me, see that. Some men and others Kuffour-Addo, and I will put down money.
And Akufo-Addo said the minimum, Nentiti Pan any law. Met Neho, no Macata no need, Womrano so. na obi ko di man sika wa bra oni contract kura na attorney general afa court attorney general say we the court ndi omra no na ko say dem no mako sika gagantu no mako chedu e bi ma Kuffour the time.
In July 2012, the year of the election, Professor Mills, the president, died, and John Dramani Mahama became the president. He led the NDC into the election, which ended in victory for the NDC. The NDC had brazenly survived the Woyome scandal and also survived an election petition. John Dramani Mahama, the winner of the election for the NDC, was sworn into office on 7 January 2013. But Martin Amidu will not let the matter rest. He styled himself as a citizen vigilante, and he attended court seeking an application in the Supreme Court to quash the High Court decision that directed that Mr. Woyome be paid. Martin Amidu's pursuit of the legal action made the Alfred Woyome matter a candidate for the issues of election 2016. Flight Lieutenant Rawlings, the former president, seemed pleased that Martin was pursuing Woyome.
The extent of corruption, this is it. Government the corruption of our very behavior. Many minka newspaper. I made Chulona cho Woyome. I made Minio. Ejake when you me of government ni ame fita ina ke fenaga junior. They didn't produce them for interrogation, can it be? To provide vital evidence that will show I get Julo Jijianwe and a Betty Mold Kemoko. He were many collaborators now mama here. There was an angman we. Bepotomon Yano no Bepotomon Yano. As Attorney General's office, women who collaborated this and our chairman. I'm not me. Tell back the general sentence, man. We are fighting corruption. We're not serious. We're not serious. Meanwhile, I'm a family job. I have what positions your party here. We know how Chumo party here. Back up more. Maybe 40% Asian, 60% air voting to protect themselves. You won't vote. You want not know the Yano. Bully. Are we so stupid?
Martin Amidu's efforts at collecting the Woyome money could not crystallize before election 2016, which incidentally ended in victory for the opposition New Patriotic Party, now under the leadership of Nana Addo Akufo-Addo. So what did the MPP do towards retrieving the Woyome money, as was promised to the people of Ghana by candidate Akufo-Addo?
At the inception of the MPP administration in January 2017, there was absolutely nothing pending on the Woyome docket. The Attorney General was sworn into office in February 2017. I was sworn into office in April 2017. And I think you also remembered that Mr. Martin Amidu, the plaintiff in the matter, had actually attempted in 2016 to examine Mr. Woyome on his assets, all with a view to ultimately identifying some properties and disposing of them by way of sale. Now, that application itself was hotly contested by the then Deputy Attorney General, my predecessor, Dr. Aine. He resisted the application so hotly, it took a ruling by the Supreme Court presided over by Justice Niaboa, authorizing Mr. Martin Amidu to cross-examine Mr. Woyome on his assets before the contestation ended. Now, for some reason, Mr. Amidu failed to cross-examine Mr. Woyome on his assets, and we took office by the grace of God in January 2017. And right thereafter, he wrote a letter indicating that he had confidence in the new administration and therefore was withdrawing his application in the Supreme Court. So the application filed by him to examine Mr. Woyome was actually withdrawn by Mr. Amidu. So when I was sworn into office in April 2017, there was nothing pending on the record, and the Attorney General authorized me to institute procedures to ensure a recovery of the Woyome assets.
But the Attorney General had some resistance, this time not from Alfred Woyome directly, but from UT Bank.
UT Bank filed an application claiming all those properties that had been attached in the execution, claiming that the properties had been sold by Mr. Woyome to them. And that we will not take any of at all, because in our view, the properties belonged to Mr. Woyome, and that application by Ms. UT Bank was a ruse, was all part of the processes to avert or prevent an execution of the judgment debt. Why do you say so? Because we had conducted our own investigations and we had ascertained that indeed, contrary to the claims of UT Bank, even though Mr. Woyome had allegedly sold the properties to UT Bank, the same properties had subsequently been used as mortgage in favor of UT Bank. So the same properties are purportedly being the subject matter of a mortgage transaction in favor of UT Bank. So the question that you ought to ask, what reasonably ought to be asked, is how can a person who claims to have been the beneficiary of a property by virtue of a sale allow the same property that he had bought to be used as mortgage for a loan that he subsequently gives in favor of the same person who had allegedly sold the property. So we disputed the claim of Mr. Woyome of UT Bank, and that resulted in a long battle in court. The court set dates for a trial of those issues. Fortunately for us, the court gave a ruling on that process on, I think, 4th July or 5th July last week, and that was in our favor.
But is it only properties of Alfred Woyome that will be sold, or will they sell something else that belongs to him?
In addition to the properties that will be sold as a result of the ruling that went to our favor last week, we would also attach the shares he holds in all the various companies and apply them towards a satisfaction of the judgment debt. We would also go back to deal with the issues raised by him about the Ablempe property, which he says belongs to his brother, and which we find to be very ludicrous. We don't think it is true at all. And we still are in the process of discovering and recovering more assets, and we'll do that until there's been a total satisfaction of the judgment debt.
So what's the political verdict of the two political scandals, the Quality Grain scandal and the Woyome Gate scandal? Quality Grain was procured by the NDC, prosecuted by the MPP under the Kuffour administration, with Attorney General Nana Addo Akufo-Addo. The Woyome Gate scandal, also procured by the NDC, the money finally retrieved by the court process under President Nana Akufo-Addo. Do these two matters add to Akufo-Addo's anti-corruption image? Maybe. Will the MPP name this Woyome matter as a campaign promise fulfilled to retrieve the Woyome money? Will this matter to voters in the election that is 17 months away? Well, we don't know. Whatever it is, politicians and public actors must always remember that posterity will always judge and they will give a verdict. Thank you for watching.
You know